evening and welcome to this, the October 14th edition of Beyond the Headlines. My name is Colin Dowe and I'll be serving as your host this evening. Thank you so very much for joining us. Thank you so very much for having us in your homes, in your cars, or whether it's logging on, whether it's some place of social interaction, GBN Television, GBN Radio, or any of our social media platforms. It's a joy to be with you this evening, and of course, you make the show happen. So greetings on this Monday evening and thank you. We actually have a very special guest this evening with us, and it's the second time for the year. I feel honored because twice in 1 year we're having this conversation. It's a one-on-one with the political leader of the New National Party and opposition leader, the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell. Good evening, Doc, and welcome to Beyond the Headlines.
Good evening, Colin, and of course, good evening to your listeners throughout the length and breadth of the country. And as you know, the social media platform brings us to the homes of people all around the world. So you have Grenadians all over the world watching and listening. So I'm saying a special good evening to them also.
Absolutely. Before we kick this off, let me just express my personal condolences to you on the passing of former Governor General Sir Daniel Williams. I know he was a foundation member of the New National Party and has been a rock of support, I suspect, throughout the years. Just some brief reflections on former Governor General Danny Williams.
Yes, you're right. Of all the people now still in the parliament of the country, I'm the only one who has had that sort of long experience of personal interaction and relationship with Sir Daniel. He's certainly a man whom I learned a lot from, who was a close confidant and advisor. And, something about him that a lot of people may not know. He was a very quiet person in his disposition, but he was always willing to counsel you and to advise you in a very soft way. He was never make you uncomfortable by telling you when you are not right. He would make you feel good, but at the same time tell you what he considered to be the approach that is not consistent with what he believes. And he would advise you accordingly. So I always remember him as that type of person. You never expect him to blast away, but certainly would not fail to tell you when you're doing something that he doesn't consider to be the best for yourselves or for those you want to serve. So that's the kind of person that this gentleman and this patriot, his Grenadian icon, has been. And tomorrow, as you know, Colin, that the Parliament doing a session of tribute to Sir Daniel. The motion will be moved by the Prime Minister, second by me. And of course, we both will be speaking, and I certainly would have a lot more personal information than anyone in the Parliament at this time would have, because of the relationship we had. And what is significant also, and people do not know, and I will say it here tomorrow also, but elaborate on it, is that Danny was never somebody interested in the representative politics. He never was interested. He was drafted in. When we were attempting to elect the team to run in the 1984 general elections, we wanted George Brezan to run in St. David's because George is from St. David's. And George did not want to run in St. David's. He wanted to run in Northeast St. George's, where Eunice Whiteman had ran before. And so in the face that George was the leader of one of the parties, and in consultation to come up with a team, we had to yield to George's wishes to go in St. George's Northeast. Mm-hmm. And the question was, who will we get to run? And that is when Danny's name came up. I did not know him at the point when his name came up. and the members of the teams meeting had to send someone to him to ask him. And he did reluctantly, after a lot of pressure, lots of pressure from people from all quarters, because you remember at that time, the winning of the general election was so important to Grenadians because of the way the revolution collapsed. And I recall that when the persons came back and said, well, he would accept it, he made it very clear he's only doing this under tremendous pressure. With the family support and everything, but he made it clear that it's one term. No matter what happened, he will not run again. And he stuck to this. So even when we wanted him to, that he had told us that 5 years before that was only going to be one term, and he stuck with that. He never wanted the representative politics. He continued to make his contribution and continue to advise everyone concerned who wishes to accept those advice, but he was never a man who was interested in a lot of material things. That's something that I remember closely. So tomorrow I'll be speaking more at length on this, but I'm glad you raised this and you gave me the opportunity on this program to at least recognize his contribution to our country.
Absolutely, very grounded, and may his soul rest in perfect peace.
That's right. That's right.
December 3rd is the 40th anniversary of your first election into the lower house of parliament and NNP's first victory. If you could just take us back, because I know you mentioned the teams coming together on the formation of the NNP and what drove that formation. As you cited, George Bizan was a leader of another party. So how did parties come together, and what was the purpose of coming together really? Was it to keep Uncle Gary out of office? What brought you guys together?
Well, it's not nice to see this, but we have to be practical about it. I think people were very scared of the possibility of the re-entry of Uncle in the national politics. So we have to be man enough to admit that was clearly one of the rationale. I mean, was not the best thing to say, but this is just fundamental facts. So the parties that came together were the George Bizan was the leader of the NDP. Francis Alexis was the leader of the Grenada Democratic Movement, which I was attached to that political organization. Tillman Thomas was also part of the GDM. And of course, Grenada National Party led by Herbert Blaise and Ben Jones and others. So a team from each party was selected to meet to come up with the candidates for the general elections going forward. And the rules were set that there were a number of persons who were being promoted as possible candidates for the general election. So it was agreed that each of the groups will come with the names of the persons that they were hearing about as possibilities for each constituency. And wherever that commonality exists, then we'll decide that person will run for that seat. In other words, if the GMP had Herbert Blaise in Carriacou, the GDM had Herbert Blaise in Carriacou, and NDP had Herbert Blaise in Carriacou, and Herbert Blaise will be, right, and would have been, and was, in fact, the person chosen to run. So I was on the list of every single one of the parties for St. George's Northwest. So I was elected. Francis Alexis also was, and Ben Jones was, and we went on that way. The problem, as I said to you earlier on, it was Brother George who clearly felt much more comfortable running in St. George's Northeast, right, and therefore he did not want to accept. Otherwise, he would have been selected for St. David's. Okay. So that was the only tension that we had, and finally agreed, and the team ran. And as you recall,
who brought the team together? Sometimes I hear, the Americans brought this team together in order to do. Who brought the teams, the parties to the table?
I would know my experience with. I can't tell you what I don't. I've heard a lot of things, but I know for for sure regional leaders who are involved. John Compton, James Mitchell, Kennedy Simmons, Eugenia Charles, just name them right through the region. They all were concerned about Grenada, and they were clear that we should drop all personalities and unite in the interest of the future of the country. So I heard stories about Americans and so on, but I didn't have personal interaction with that aspect at all. I can't say no or yes to a situation like this.
Okay, we are aware that the first time you ran for elected politics was in 1972. What was your affiliation then? On what ticket did you run?
Well, we had a group of young people involved in educating persons in politics. I was then, as you recall, a national cricket captain, and I was teaching at the Presidential College, so I was generally pretty popular at the national level. But there was no political organization. Eunice Whiteman was also involved, and a number of others. Bishop had just returned, but he didn't have the public support at that time. People did not know him well at that particular time. So when the general election was called, the GMP felt that they were not in a very strong position with the team that they had of generally more older persons and with experience in political life, but not a lot of people with the youthful support. Mm-hmm. And therefore, they sought us out to have a coming together of forces. But at that point, since we had no political party, if we had to do so, we had to certainly we had to join the GNP, and we made it clear we were not necessarily GNP supporters, but we are doing this in the national interest. And I was the one whom Herbert Blaze contacted, and the team of from the GMP, the Grenada National Party. Mm-hmm. Dan Friday was also a key member of that team. Roald Charles was a business person who was a very good friend, someone that I respected and always respected. Mm-hmm. And they came forward, and after a long urging, we finally agreed. So then when I agreed, they told me, well, we need to get some other young persons with me to join with the team, and I went to Eunice Whiteman, and Eunice said, if you're going, I will go.
What is it? That's interesting, because it almost seems...
I brought them in. And Roy O'Neill was working with the Nova Scotia Bank,
right?
And he was also a very good friend, but he was not directly in politics, but I knew he had connection on the ground. So I went to Roy, and Roy agreed. Selwyn Strawn also, I approached Selwyn. Selwyn used to be playing cricket too. And so we got a number of young people to join the team, and that was the first time in 1972. But I knew the chances of winning the Northwest seat at that time was not very high.
Right.
But we felt like uniting the forces, it could send a national message, and then the possibility of winning were better. But I had very strong relationship in Northwest with the people there. They liked me, but they were strong supporters of Eric, so Eric Matthew Gehrig. And they loved me as an individual, but they also loved their party. So
well, it's interesting, because we don't normally think of GNP as a quote-unquote poor people party, if I'm to use that term. So to hear you being on that ticket is almost surprising.
They did not see it. So I had a lot of jokes during that period when people would me and say, Keith, man, a poor man like me, what you doing on the side of GNP? I say, well, we have to unite, and that's why I have to bring in a sense of poor representation inside the GNP. So the necessity for me and others to come in was also important.
Okay.
So we had to explain it in that way. But it was a fun campaign, I must say that. Lots of love, lots of support in terms of, but at that time, the key thing, Colin, the voting age at that time was still 21. The law was passed in the parliament to go to 18, but Sir Eric decided at that time this would be the last election where the 18-year-old people will not be able to vote.
Right.
So it did not implement the law in that general election. Had he done so, I would have done better. I probably still would not have won because of the strength of Gary, but it would have been much closer.
Understood.
I lost by 300 and some votes, I believe, if I very well. But it was a very fun campaign. In fact, after the election, I recall driving in St. George's at the time, and George Austin, whom I ran against, was on the Esplanade by George Eves Bar with the boys that supported them. And they stopped me and said, man, come and have a drink with us, And they said, we know you're one of us, but so let's have a drink together. That's the day after the election,
Right.
And I remember George Olsen saying, Keith, let me tell you this. I'm quite convinced that you will be the next representative of Northwest St. George's. I have absolutely no doubt about this. And I'm telling you that because we recognize the person that you are and so on. I never forget this. So while done, and we did not win, but I think in terms of a campaign, it was one of a joyous campaign in the sense that people loved you and they showed a lot of interest, but they voted where they felt their personal interests were.
And that's understandable. And if I'm just to bring it now to the formation of the NNP, the party's founding principles, and allow me to read from your constitution. The preamble of the constitution said, the people of Grenada experienced tremendous political, social, and economic upheavals, which has shaken the bedrock of their democracy, and they have determined they wish to live under a democracy which requires the rule of law, respect for human rights, social justice. There is the need for a new political party. Fundamental principles. Was the NNP able to deliver on this?
I think this to a large extent. I think you can say so. I can't say every term, every word that everything was achieved, but I believe, generally speaking, the process of democracy prevailed in the country. People are free to speak. No one was being fearful that when they speak they would be unjustly treated. I think people would be clear. I recall one of the things that were done, recognizing the period of upheaval of the revolution and some of the problems that existed, and the fact that there were a lot of excesses in that period prior to the revolution coming to being under Sir Eric. There were excesses and also a lot of excesses during the revolution, and they felt that we need to bury the hatchet and set a new page. And the feeling is many of the people who were defined as mongoose gang, so to speak, that was the term being used. They were in prison at the time, and as I said to Robert Blaze, and he agreed that we have to move past that period, and therefore releasing those guys were very important.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that were done, and a lot of the guys who were in the revolution were identified as having done things which were not consistent with democracies. They were forgiven too, and therefore we felt that we need to unite the country again and learn to live together while we had fundamental differences on issues. But as a nation, we must come together to continue to build this country called Spice Gate.
Let me just continue quoting from here. And so the formation of a political party named and known as the New National Party be dedicated to the continued political, economic, social, and cultural development of the state of Grenada. Over the last 40 years, can you just give us some examples of each? So political development, have we matured politically as a people, or are we more tribal than ever, dating back to the 70s?
Well, in the politics, as stated, when you're dealing with in political life, people have differences, and their ambitions sometimes prevail over what is generally considered to be the better good, and therefore the party, the NNP, as you know, by 1987, George Brazan moved his faction out of the government and formed the NDC, which is now NDC, to the National Democratic Congress. And we continued. I continued in government with Herbert Blaise, and later on, Herbert Blaise was at the point coming to 1989, as you recall. Blaise was very sick. And as it showed, it was very clear that he was not able, he was on a wheelchair, unable to function effectively. And there were a lot of pressure on myself and those the younger members of the team that we need to look towards the future. And I was very much against putting myself up against Herbert Blaise, because he had been good to me in many ways, and I didn't like it. And I did offer him. I said, look, why don't you make Ben Jones the leader? And I would help him along and so on, because I did not want to be the one. And he would not do it. And I think as it showed in the end, within a month after those serious conversations, he died. And it was clear that he was not a well person. So I ended up with leadership of the party by default, in effect. And the party split. So the party that won the election in 1984 split three ways.
Right.
And therefore, the time we went back into election in 1990, the NNP, as it was supposed to be functioning, only won 2 seats in the general election in 1990. That was myself in Northwest, St. George's, and St. Mark's. So St. Mark's and Northwest are the only 2 seats that the NNP has never lost since 1994.
Okay.
And I just want to make one point about this. Colin, you remember I said in 1972 that the GLP had a tremendous stronghold in Northwest St. George's, and I didn't win then. In 1984, it was still very strong, so that I only got 60% of the votes in 1984. Only. The GLP got 40%, I got 60%.
Right.
And at that time, George Brazan was a member of the NNP and had a lot of number of young supporters who supported me because of George Brazan. But Blaise team had a strength in Montmorris. Right. And therefore, because of that, I got their votes in Montmorris. So when the party split 3 ways, you would have expected that I would have lost. Right. But I increased my majority from 60% to 70%. You know how? Because the GLP I saw in Gary's decline came to my rescue, so to speak, and voted for me pretty solidly. So I ended up with 70% of the votes in a time when the country split 3 ways.
Okay.
I just want to make that point for what it's worth.
Understood. Are political parties strong organizations, or are they just election vehicles? I mean, how do you see political parties operating at this point in Grenada?
But it's supposed to be more than just for the political vehicle. It must be more than that. And there's some fundamental principles that you stand for. You know, sometimes it becomes too much a personality thing, and I think Caribbean politics have always been a personality issue more than anything else. And unfortunately, I think that's when we have to continue to grow. In other words, if your party stands on fundamental principles, for example, the present NNP, it was a centrist political organization. It's not defined as right or left. I've always told people, on some issues you might consider Keith Mitchell left. On some issues I might consider to be right. And I believe in the practical aspect of the politics, but I firmly believe in the democratic principles, and I believe people have a right for dissent. And sometimes dissent helps to strengthen you if you are open to it. And sometimes when you're in a position of power, we come to believe in ourselves so much that we tend to believe anybody that says something differently dislikes us, when in fact many times the people when they speak like opening, they sometimes strengthen us if we are open to it. And unfortunately, I believe that the party should be a lot more than this. There's some social issues that you stand for. there's some issues of policy in terms of fundamental ideological positions that you believe in. And therefore, it should not just be a personality. So when you're looking towards persons to be involved in your organization, they must share some common values, fundamental values. And I believe that that is something we need to continue to strive towards. I don't think we're there yet, honestly so.
Okay.
But I think it's something we should be striving
Are
for.
politicians and eventual ministers of government a diverse set of experts who can contribute innovative ideas to national development, or are we still at the stage of rum and corned beef? And I'm sorry to express it that way, but
no, I don't think I really don't see it as rum and corned beef for this. I think before you could have said that to some extent. Election time, people look towards giving away things. But going back, Colin, I want to make this point, and I believe sometimes we politicians take people for granted and believe that we can fool people easily, and sometimes they give us surprises. I remember growing up when election time, you hardly see the candidates from the Grenada National Party, but election time, they come in and they're buying drinks and the food and so on. And the people eat and drink and then still vote for Eric Gary.
Right.
So while you might think that they fall for this, and in the period they give you that impression because they're enjoying themselves, it is not so simple. And I personally have never really participated in that type of politics. And if you're connected to people and you serve them well, Grenadians are not ungrateful people. If you are connected with them on the ground and you wave them on a regular basis over a period of time, a man cannot just come just before election and give them food and they will vote. They might take some of the material things that you give them, but if you that they would abandon someone that has stayed with them all the time and because of this material thing, I think.
But how do you feel of politicians having some level of expertise so that our ministers of government have some level of expertise in the area in which they're serving, and hence can contribute at a greater level, one may argue, to the parliament? So as you assemble your team, should it be a team of experts, diverse expertise and skill sets? So whether you win the next election or not, Grenada will have a strong parliament.
No, Colin, I think I see it differently. Let me say this. It's okay. I came into government as a mathematician and therefore had expertise in finance and other areas, and with my large experience in Washington as a business person. So that's a good thing. But I think that was a secondary importance to my role in the politics. I think the first priority, what made me successful at my constituency level, was my relationship with people. So I think you have to be connected with people on the ground, and you have to care for people, and people are not fools. They know when you're coming and you're just looking for votes. They know, and they might give you a trial the first time, but then they give you have 4 or 5 years to demonstrate who you really are, and they will figure you out. So the next time, you won't be able to fool them easily. So I think that is something that you must always remember. I always put as a fundamental aspect. I think what is more important, Colin, in the politics than the expertise, because you can always buy expertise. You could always, a government could always get consultants and bring them in and pay them appropriately to advise them on policies. But more importantly, for one to get into politics, I believe you must have some sense of independence. You should not be coming into politics your first time without a job. You never had a job in your life. You didn't even have a solid education background. So you come in with a clean, so-called empty slate. So, as somebody put it recently, if you are beggy, and somebody can buy you, you understand the point?
Yeah.
So I honestly believe that's more important. And if you look at the present team, most of them never really had a serious job in their life, except for the Prime Minister and a couple of other people in the government. And I think that's one of the reasons the government is suffering so badly, because people now perceive them as in there to help themselves and not the people. And if you look at the people you compare, and I use that a lot of times on the political platform, and I will continue to do that even more. You look at the NNPT. You look at some of the people. Dr. Clarice Mothers, she's a medical doctor. She gave up a lot to get into politics. So financially, she would have been better off outside of politics. Gregory Bowen was one of the top engineers in the region. Had Gregory not been in politics, he'd have been making millions of dollars. So he made a lot of sacrifice in getting into the politics. You look at other people look at myself. I mean, if I'd stayed in Washington and I was interested in buying a yacht, I would have been able to have a yacht today and other things, but that was not my priority, and therefore I'm proud of where I'm right now. But look, we're attracting somebody like a Mayana Charles, Dr. Charles. She's empowered herself already. She has made herself. Therefore, if she's into politics, it cannot be about material things. It has to be much more about service. And I think this is very crucial. At Dwight Horsford coming in.
If I may, it's time for our first break, and we will come back and let's drill down on the individuals that you started highlighting. So we'll be right back after this first break.
Sure.
Spend $50 or more at any Hubbard's department or participating outlets for a chance to win free fuel, free drinks, free prizes, free property and vehicular insurance, free Hub TV and internet, free electricity, free coke, free water, free cooking gas, free paint supplies, free Dutch Lady milk, free passes to Sunshine promotion events for 2024, free groceries, all for one whole year, and every winner receives a free lunch package. But that's not all. Drive away in style in a brand new Isuzu D-Max. It sips, it doesn't guzzle. So fill out your entries and place them into the marked entry boxes. This promotion is brought to you in part by Dutch Lady, Danny, Promo, Supreme Bleach, Creative Chef, Grenlac, Floor, Salt Petroleum, Grenadian General Insurance Company Limited, Coca-Cola, Sunshine Promotion, Caribberies, Guap Bag, Sesame Spain, and Food Fear. Promotion runs from April 2nd to December 24. Terms and conditions apply.
Win a living room makeover with Quartz Ready Cash. One lucky winner will get a chance to win a living room makeover with any cash loan. No security required and affordable monthly payments. It's quick, easy, and hassle-free. Visit one of our locations for more information about getting your Ready Cash loan today. This month is all about you with Quartz Ready Cash. Ready when you are. Terms and conditions apply.
Grenada is invited to be a part of the National Heroes Day commemoration on Saturday, October 19th, 2024 at Progress Park in St. Andrew from 9:30 a.m. to 12 midday. National Heroes Day will be commemorated under the theme Unity in commemorating our heroes, past, present, and future. Speakers at the National Heroes Day commemoration will include the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, and the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. An exciting and entertaining cultural package will form part of the celebrations. Organize your groups now and let's make this a most memorable event in recognition of the sacrifices and achievements of our national heroes. Free transportation will be provided. National Heroes Day Commemoration 2024, Saturday, October 19th, Progress Park in St. Andrew.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, and we are in tune to my one-on-one conversation with the leader of His Majesty's Opposition and political leader of the New National Party, the Right Honourable Dr. Keith Mitchell. Doc, last time we met, and this was back in January, I called a number of names and we were discussing leadership roles. At this point, I will do something similar, but just as you envision their future contributions to the party, what role do you see them playing? And immediately I would go with your MPs. So I think immediately of Kate Lewis. What role do you see her playing as the party moves forward?
You know, I see many people like Kate as rising star within the NNP. And you can see their growth as they move forward. They start at one point, but as you are around them, you see them growing, and you could see that these people are in preparation for whatever position the organization see them capable of in the future. Look at an Emlyn Pear.
Right.
When he came in more the connection with young people and creating programs and opportunity, and you could see the love and interest in people. But what you're seeing today is not just that. You see leadership potential, you see charisma, you see care for people. And that is the kind of thing. And therefore you're seeing growth. And I'm sure if you're watching my program, you see I speak now. And
you speak passionately about MP Pierre. Do you see her as a future leader of the New National Party?
Of course, I'm tremendous. I see it that way. I see it definitely. And that's what I'm saying. This is why it makes it so easy for me. I'm sure you heard me saying I feel like a father now of that team, and therefore a father doesn't always have to be in the house all the time. A father can be outside and providing support and advice.
Let me get to a couple of your younger ones.
That makes you feel good, Colin. It makes you feel real good, and I feel enriched by what I'm seeing in the team evolving in the New National Party at this time.
As you think forward, Nolan Cox, he ran South St. George. I know he has repositioned. He lost his wife recently. He's now back in Carriacou. Nolan Cox.
Yes, man. I mean, oh my God, Cox is growing. You can see he is one. Another thing about Cox, you could see that charisma, that care for people, that empathy. You see that deep. And it's when Cox speaks, it's not just about Carriacou and Peter Martinique, which of course is close to his heart. But you can see it from the standpoint of somebody who loves people. He enjoys what he's doing. And Colin, one of the things about politics, if you get into it and it's only about yourself and the material things, you're not going to enjoy it. But if you get in there and you love people, even when you're not doing well as you would want to do materially, you're enjoying it. And I see that in Cox and the Emlyn Pear and the others in the organization. And that is what is so it makes you feel so good. First time candidate. Cox is definitely, I see Cox as a future prospects for leadership of the New National Party too. I see that.
Okay. Victor Phillip, another first timer last elections.
No, Victor is one of the constituency man. He's been there, a loyal soul and son, and in the politics of the country, and therefore someone is one thing about people like about Victor is that they're principled people. They will not do things behind your back sometimes that will cause you problems and concern. They're very loyal people. They're very concerned about the things that they're doing. And I think wherever we go in a meeting, Victor is always there. So these are people that you can see they care deeply about what they're doing, and makes you feel good about these elements around us. Around
the next first time on last elections, Nimrod Oliver.
Yes, Nimrod, Nimrod had enormous experience, as you know, as a man who left here as a poor young man and went abroad and served in the U.S. military and been a top cop in New York for years. And you know, that again tells you something about people like that. Nimrod came here, and he financially, because of his service in New York, he was a man that felt comfortable with himself. But what did he do? Because he wanted to make a contribution to his homeland, Nimrod gave up citizenship. You know, people don't give up the citizenship of America easily. And literally, for some time, a good period after this, he had to be getting a visa to get a pass to go to the United States when he gave up his citizenship to run for office.
I know this is something that you yourself can connect with personally, because that is a road you yourself walked.
I had to do that too. I had to do this. But I felt, in his case, it was more of a difficulty for him because he had not been in government, he had not been serving in government, yet he was able to give up his citizenship and made himself available to represent the people in his constituency and to make his contribution. And because of the serious amount of experience he has in security, he can be a valuable contributor to the national security of this country. So you see how the team is building based on the question you are asking me about personalities.
Okay.
I think we have a rich future as a political organization. I believe the country will be enriched by the future of the new National Party.
Earlier you said that it was important that people speak their mind and speak up, and sometimes if you're thin-skinned, that wasn't your words, it's mine, you may take it personally and not realize it was an opportunity to grow. So the next name, somebody who has been speaking up, is Peter David. What role do you see for Peter David in the party moving forward?
Well, Peter and I have had conversation, and one thing you know about me, I don't like to be dishonest about it. I told Peter I'm concerned about things that I'm here. I've told him so, and I've told him also that the question of trust is very important in anything you do. And if you're in a business, I have to be able to trust you. You might have certain skills and so on, and that's an area that's work in progress. It's not there yet.
What can you say may have been the betrayal of trust?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
What would you say was the betrayal of trust that would have brought about this?
No, I would not go into that. No, that's a personal issue. I said, we spoke, and he knows exactly my position. You see, the good thing about me, and maybe where I'm right now, as I told you, I feel like a father figure. If I see a colleague of mine and I feel I'm in a position, and people did that for me. Danny did that to me, you know. When he saw me going wrong, he called me in and advised me accordingly. And I feel I owe it to the young ones today. If they're doing something that I consider to be inimical to the interests of the organization that we serve, then I owe it to them not to go in the street and talk about the specifics, but certainly I owe it to them to tell them about what I see. I mean, if they accept it, fine. You don't have to accept it. And let's face it, Colin, I'm not saying that I would always be right, but I feel I owe it to you to tell you how I feel. Right. And then you put it in the pot and stir it accordingly. So right. I said to you enough about the Peter David thing, and he knows that. And I wouldn't sit here and try to pretend otherwise, because that's not me. I don't play games with my feelings. I really don't play games.
Right.
I'm very soft, but I'm a very firm person, and no one will take me for granted. One thing you know about me, I suffered in politics before. I was fired in government because I stood for certain things and I said what I believe. And as far as I'm concerned, that's what a human being should be. If you're not happy with something, you have to speak to it. And I think that is where it should go.
The talk on the ground is that the new golden boy is Dwight Hosford. So share with us how you see Dwight moving forward and contributing to the party.
Well, let's face it. Same point I made a while ago. Dwight was very comfortable. doing well as Attorney General outside of the country, in our Caribbean country, and serving well and doing well financially, must be, and so on. And he was being sought after by regional governments and businesses and so on. And therefore, he to decide to leave all that and to come home and to contribute in the political life of the country. That's an enormous sacrifice. So you have to see to it. He's been out for a while, so clearly he has to get his foot wet into the country again. But again, Dwight has a future. There's a serious role in the party, and with his legal expertise, and I tell you this young man is a very bright young person with a lot of experience and skills. And I believe that Dwight has a tremendous future in the new National Party and in the country as a whole.
Mm-hmm. Do you see an issue with, let's say, one like Dwight Hosford offering themselves, someone who has never been a candidate, offering themselves for political leadership of the party prior to the next elections?
That's a possibility. Why not? Why not?
Would it cause any tensions with some of the long-standing members, the likes of an Emmeline Pear, as that you said that you have seen grown, and the Nolan Cox and others?
Well, nothing is wrong to have 1, 2, or 3. The more the merrier. You get a chance, the delegates get a chance to please. And don't forget, the father is there to advise. I'm sure all of them would love to have my advice. And
I'm wondering whether somebody would accuse Dwight of parachuting in to take over the leadership.
But let's face it, for that to happen, he would have had to wet his feet and do the work. And that is so. Any assumption of possibility will be based on this. He just came in and he has told you on many programs, he said he's here to work and to help. He never said I came in here to lead. And this is the right approach. Correct. So if he has emerged, it must be clear that the work will be done, and the acceptability by the delegates and by the party supporters, not by just personalities like myself, but by people in general, has to be there. So that's why I said the process is going on well. I'm extremely happy. I'm delighted that the party is in this position, having me there as a person who has been 40 years in the politics, and having these rising stars, the Emmeline Pear, the Nolan Cox, and Dwight Hosford, and having them there, I think the party should be proud. And I am a proud father, right? Colin,
let me ask you this just before I move on from Dwight. I understand that he had expressed interest in elective politics prior, and he was not given the nod to represent the NNP in 2008. If you reflect, why was that?
No, I think there were other persons who the party felt at that time. But and let's face it, I mean, the fact is he did not show any animosity when he was not elected, and that is clearly an example of the difference with Dwight compared to many others. So the minute they don't get what they want, they disappear and they start to run their mouths freely. Dwight understood. He wasn't happy, but he did not behave in a manner which was inconsistent with his interest in the development of the country. He went outside, he got a job, and served his country, served well in the capacity as Attorney General outside, and came back home now, and he's with a lot more experience and clearly having learned from his years of activities in representation outside, and I think he's in a far better position today than he was then. So the sky is the limit going forward.
Excellent. Will Dr. Mitchell be a candidate for the next general election? And I'm assuming good health and vitality prevails. Will Dr. Mitchell be a candidate in the next general election?
The one thing I promise, any decision with respect to my being a candidate, first will be discussed with the constituency of Northwest St. George, and I'm sure you'd appreciate that they stood by me in the worst of times and gave me the absolute support, and therefore I owe it to them. So I will not be answering a question like this on national program. before I speak to them. But there are all kinds of possibilities of pro or not so going forward. So as I said, Colin, I'm at peace. I really am at peace, and therefore I will be doing what I consider best for the party and for the country going forward. Keith Mitchell has done what he's supposed to have done, and he has no regrets whatsoever. So I'm looking at options at this particular time, and what is best for the party and the country will in fact be done.
Let me ask you this, probably another hypothetical, but if Keith Mitchell is a candidate, is there a possibility of Keith Mitchell candidate for NNP, but at the same time Keith Mitchell is not the political leader of the NNP? Is that a possibility in unfolding?
No, that possibility will not exist. If I am not running, if I decide to run, it would be by the basis that I would continue to be the Prime Minister of the country and lead the party. And that's so. If I'm not running, rest assured, the fact or the fundamental thing would be because I believe the party needs new leadership. So that is the criteria. So I hope I'm very clear on this. So if you hear I'm not running, it's because I've come to the conclusion that the party is in a better position to have a new leader taking care of the party in the general elections coming up.
Okay.
Am I clear, Colin?
Am I clear? Oh, you're very, very clear.
Good.
As we would have discussed, we hear the term party leads as opposed to caretakers. And I know that the National Executive would typically appoint caretakers, but we're hearing party leads. And a couple of the pocket meetings you'll be having and zonal meetings, party leads are introduced. Who appointed party leads, and is this a new term? How did we come about this? And it seems...
It meant the same thing, Colin, and in fact that would be certainly have to be corrected. It would be caretakers, basically. The party leads would be caretakers, and that's basically what it should be. The executive will be meeting hopefully soon and would be looking at that particular situation where the leads would be defined as basically caretakers.
Okay.
But don't forget, caretakers are a temporary term. That is what it is.
Right.
Like leads are temporary term going forward. I mean, that's essentially to take care of things and the constituency at that particular time. That's what it would be.
I believe what you're signaling here, that a party leader or constituency leader or constituency caretaker will not necessarily roll over into be the constituency's candidate.
Absolutely so. Absolutely. When the time comes for an election, you could be a caretaker, and that's what it says. But the constituency may decide there's someone else to run for the office of the constituency in the general election. Same thing like a leader. So as I said, it's almost mean the same thing. But since we talk in constitutional stuff, then you have to stick to the words in the Constitution. That's basically what it should be, more than anything else. We need to satisfy the constitutional process, not necessarily mean anything differently. There will be no difference.
And then let's speak to the Constitution. I believe Article 5.5D, so yes, I've read it, speaks to your conventions. And it speaks to annual conventions. It speaks to the National Executive having meetings every 6 months at a minimum. National Executive meetings, has that been happening every 6 months? And we are aware publicly that there has not been.
You mean General Council?
General Council, sorry, yes, every 6 months.
Because we have National Executive almost on a monthly basis.
Yes. So General Council has I know there has been a recent one.
We had one this year. We did not have it each for the last 2 years, one every 6 months. But that is something the Constitution does not say that it must happen, but it has. We try to stick to the process of the Constitution as much as possible.
I'm not.
There was a period when we were in opposition before for a couple of years. We didn't have any convention or general council us. And the NDC, the same thing for years. The NDC never had a convention or general council, as far as I remember. Party makes decision based on what is best, and the executive is the one who makes decision as far as these issues are concerned. So the party would be clearly looking for getting ready. We just had a general council, and we're getting ready for a general convention.
And when can we, we waited with bated breath, Doc. So, when can we expect a convention? Would it be before the end of 2024, first quarter 2025? When can we look forward to one? I like the
fact that we said we're waiting. It means that the NNP is looked on as the party with the vision for the country. So I like that fact that they say we're waiting for this, because I would have thought that we should be more concentration on what's happening in government. But Colin, that's an interesting point. I sit there and I hear every minute about when the NNP having convention, when the NNP having general council, who's going to be the leader? But we're not in government. I hardly hear people talking about the nonsense going on in government, the mess being created and the suffering of the people of the country, the economic problems in the country. We're not hearing anything about this. The lack of accountability by people in government, traveling as will and not telling the people about the expenditures being incurred in their name. There's so many things that are happening.
We'll certainly come to the national issues as I promised. So that we will do.
I just wanted to make a point because I'm just zeroing on that area of concern. That yes, you will talk to the NNP about this, but I'm talking about in a general context, not necessarily in this program. I'm talking in a general context. You're in a lot of discussion from supposedly independent personalities in the country, and it's all about NNP and the future of the party and so on. It's good in one sense because it shows that the NNP is the one being looked at for serious issues related to the country's future. But I find that there should be more concentration on the government. You did say you're going to bring up the issues later.
Yes, so but you will also agree that for a sound democracy, and that's one of the fundamental principles upon which the NNP was founded back in 1984, there needs to be at least two strong political parties in Grenada. 15 Love doesn't help us. We need a parliament where there are meaningful discussions, and maybe that's the reason why the wealth, health, and well-being of the NNP is of concern to Grenadians.
Yeah, well, no, I understand this. I'm just saying the discussion should be constantly about NNP. I'm not talking about having discussion. I'm just saying, I'm talking about there are a lot of people in the media and so-called political consultants and so on. You hear them talking programs. And you don't hear them talking about the government and what is happening. And that's what I'm talking about, Colin. Don't miss me. Don't miss the point I'm making. Yes, you must. I'm very concerned that you need to have two strong political organizations. And I don't necessarily agree with the point made about 15 seats. Because let's face it, the issue of governance is not just about being in the parliament. It's about what's happening in terms of the interaction with the people in the country. So when we had 15 seats, no one could say that we abused the power that we had. No one could say that we didn't consult. For example, Colin, look at a simple example. When we had Ivan, what did we do? We didn't go off on our own. We invited the opposition party into discussions going forward. We invited them and we said, look, we have a national issue. Let's come together. We invited the business community, as you recall. We invited the trade unions. We formed a national team going forward.
And that would have been for COVID, because Ivan was an 8-7, but that's only for the COVID when that social construct.
Yes, I'm just saying we brought the opposition in. I made a point, whether they were in government or not.
Yeah.
I mean, in the parliament. We brought people together because we believed the national consensus was important in solving. Today you have a situation in Karakou where a good portion of Karakou literally have suffered. And we have not one time we were called upon as an organization, or we heard the business community were called in and say, let's work and see how we can solve. It's all about the government of the day. And I'm saying that so the 15th seat did not isolate us into doing things for ourselves, as opposed to a government in office who did not have 15 seats and is doing things on its own and not consulting with people. Look, I never left the island, Colin, without telling people where I was going and what I was going to do. And if I was going to anything private, there's no way I'm accepting government funds going forward. I'm not saying that it's happening now, but I'm simply saying we were always transparent with the people of the country in things that we did. I just wanted to make that point.
No problem.
So I agree with having that two-strong party system, and the NNP's role in that two-party system is necessary, and that's why we'll continue to play that role. So I agree with the point that you're making. I didn't want to get away from that fundamental point.
Excellent. It's time for our second break, so we'll take a break, and then we'll be dealing with national issues when we return. Be right back.
About the moments we share, the smiles, the laughter, and the love that fills our homes. This season, let your walls reflect the warmth of family time. Sisson's Paint, matched with every shade of togetherness. Celebrate 12 weeks of Christmas with Sisson's. Buy one, get one 30% off on selected items. And with every purchase of any Sisson's Paint, you get a chance to win US $100 every week for 12 weeks, from October 1st to December 22nd. Terms and conditions apply. Available at all Sisson's hardware dealers nationwide. Sisson's, internationally tested, brilliantly affordable.
All of Grenada is invited to be a part of the National Heroes Day commemoration on Saturday, October 19th, 2024 at Progress Park in St. Andrew from 9:30 a.m. to 12 midday. National Heroes Day will be commemorated under the theme Unity in commemorating our heroes, past, present, and future. Speakers at the National Heroes Day commemoration will include the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, Prime Minister of Grenada, and the Honorable Ralph Gonzalez, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. An exciting and entertaining cultural package will form part of the celebrations. Organize your groups now and let's make this a most memorable event in recognition of the sacrifices and achievements of our national heroes. Free transportation will be provided. National Heroes Day Commemoration 2024, Saturday, October 19th, Progress Park in St. Andrew.
And so it begins, a journey like none other. Every moment has the potential to be unforgettable. Bring home a piece of the tropical green forest with every emerald. Capture the sparkling light of flawless water in a diamond. Make the sunrise and sunsets last forever. With precious colored gemstones, the essence of happiness is in our most precious memories. So, when it all comes to an end, bring home something that will last forever. Colombian Emeralds International. Bring home more than a memory.
As we get ready to give thanks, the long Thanksgiving weekend. Legends Promotions presents the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center at 7:30 p.m. Featuring the 1980 Calypso Monarch Survivor. Together with Stubbles. 10 times Calypso Monarch Scholar. Alongside Luta, Tobago Crusoe, and 7 times Soca and 10 times Road March King. Super Blue. Super Blue. Tickets cost $16 and are available at all Gittins Healthcare Pharmacies, Wall Street, Grenville, and Guelph, Springs Shopping Center, St. David's Pharmacy, Clear Vision Eye Care Center, on the Carinage, and Gittins Pharmacy, St. George's. It's the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Thanksgiving weekend, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m. You can't afford to miss this one.
Welcome back, viewers and listeners, with this one-on-one discussion with the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell, political leader of the New National Party and leader of His Majesty's opposition. Dr. Mitchell, national issues. We are aware that there was some industrial action taking place today by the Grenada Union of Teachers because of the late payment, or in some cases non-payment, of temporary teachers. This is a perennial issue. I remember my first job was Government of Grenada, was as a teacher, 3.5 months. A good thing I was living at home by mommy, so she took care of me. And in 2024, this is still happening. What's the cause of this?
You know, I cannot tell you that I know exactly the cause in this specific case, but I know there is a serious problem of administrative governance in the country within the public service, and it has a lot to do with the government itself, the decisions that they made. You know, Colin, one thing I valued when I came into government, you know, we had permanent secretaries like your mom. They were experienced people. They may have had their political sides, but they were very experienced, and they provided support to young politicians like myself. You had Marjorie Dowe. You had Mrs. Steele, Pamela Steele. I mean, I could go on and on about those people, and they provided. So when we came into government and we were looking for a cabinet secretary, we chose. Look at the people that we had in to head the public service. Marjorie Dowe. Then we had Merrill Forsyth. They cannot be said to be NNP type persons, backers of NNP. Aga Alexander, it was well known, I was told that he was never a supporter of the NNP, but he was made cabinet secretary in my time. Elizabeth Greenwich, no one can say that they know Elizabeth Greenwich's politics. When we looked at the Public Service Commission, who headed the Public Service Commission? Beryl Isaac. Years of service to people would work with their mother and others. In the public, the same Governor General now today was headed the public service. They were never a partisan type person managing or heading the Public Service Commission. But every institution that you see today is being headed by someone who has very close political connection to the party in government. And I think that's fundamentally flawed. If we are to Colin, that's important, you know, very important issue. We had a commissioner of police, Colin, who was serving the country well, and he came into government, and he was moved. I came into government in '95 with Colonel Ogilvie as the commissioner of police, working under NDC government. We kept him for a long period before we had change of commissioner of police. I'm just making the point. So I'm saying it appears to me from information, because it's not just the problem with the teachers. There are lots of other persons in the public service.
Let me just do,
on time.
If I can, just two things. Speaking of the Commissioner of Police, and former Commissioner Edwin Martin, I must declare, is a friend of mine. But in 2013, when you returned to office, you too moved the then Commissioner of Police.
It was clear. The Commissioner of Police showed himself with clearly partisan. That was clear. The man refused to come to see me as the elected Prime Minister of the country. The commissioner then, before him, Colonel Ogilvie, had to call him and said, "Have you gone to see the Prime Minister?" And he refused. He finally had to come. And when I was trying to talk to him, he challenged me about his role, and there was hostility. There's no question about it. And I'm not saying if that person acts in a way inimical to the interests of the job, then he has to move. And I have no apologies for this. It was not me that made the decision. He made the decision for me. And that's the point I was making.
Right. And
I want to clear. So, I mean, people that heard this nonsense about me moving him, he moved himself based on his behavior.
Okay. The challenge that we have...
I have nothing against the gentleman. He might have problems with me, but I have nothing against him. But Colin, I don't hold people in mind. One thing you know about me, you see some of the people that oppose me vehemently before, and they have been working with me, they have worked with me, because I learn to forgive and move forward and so on. Sometimes I make mistakes in some of those decisions, but that's life. You can't always win in every decision that you make.
How are we here with what you're suggesting?
Colin, I'm making a point. It's unfortunate that people work for months and don't get paid.
Yes.
And it's not just the teachers. I've heard of a number of public servants who are not being paid on time, because a lot of the key persons who were manning the system before have been moved, and people who were supposed to, who probably maybe less capable, I don't know the individuals myself, so I can't really conclude them, but I know the persons that were there were managing the system well, and unfortunately many of them have been moved on, and this is the problem I think the country is facing.
How did we get to a place where we had professional permanent secretaries who actually are the administrative leads of the various ministries, to know where, as you're suggesting, a lack of professionalism, a lack of competency that is leading to this type of seeming chaos and industrial action? How did it get here?
Well, it has to be the government decision. Colin, the leadership has to take responsibility for this. Colin, I give you an example of the difference in philosophy. You check the people that served me as permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's ministry. Many of them who never could be said to people that were identified as close to me politically. I remember an incident. I will not call the permanent secretary the person's name. That person and a family, the individual, was known to be not supportive of NNP, and it was really vocal. That is, the family members. And I remember when I asked the Public Service Commission to put that person in the Prime Minister's office as PS. The individual called me and said they wanted to, when they got a letter, they had to transfer to the Prime Minister's office. The individual came into me and said to me that, said, Prime Minister, I want to ask you sure you want me here? Because, the person I knew that politically they were not supported. So I said to her, sure, I want you here because I believe you do a job. And son, I don't know where you will vote, but I know you will do my job, and that's what I'm interested in. And I said, maybe after a few months we might be so close, you never know. So you never know.
Let me ask you, do you believe your administration did enough to build capacity within the public service over your tenure, and hence we ought not to be having this type of problems now with personnel and certainly with systems with the late payments?
I cannot say, Colin, you cannot say you're perfect. I think we did a lot. But I mean, to say that we did all that we could have done, no, I'm still human, so, and of course, I'm working with a team, so I cannot say that everything that we should have done. But I'm telling you, we had people in place, permanent secretaries, who were marginalized. I mean, when the government came in, this government came in, there were a number of public servants who I believe, permanent secretary, I personally believe, supported them. And they had years of experience. What did they do? You choose a cabinet secretary from way down in the system that had no experience in managing any serious department in the public service and made them cabinet secretary. That's a gigantic decision which has sent shocking waves in the public service. So a lot of the people who were looking for possibilities, knowing that they in fact supported the government to come into office and felt they had much more skills and more experience, felt marginalized right away. You have in fact interfered with the temperature in the public service by that one particular decision. And there were other decisions that were done after that which compounded the problem that you're facing. So Colin, I will never say that the NNP did all that he should have done to empower the public service and to give them all the tools. No, I would never say this. In hindsight, there were probably things we could have improved on. But I certainly think no one could say that we didn't do a lot to improve the service as a whole. Look at the Department of Public Administration. It's almost non-existent today. Millions of dollars were spent to putting people in place to manage a system. There was a young lady who came into the public service from the teaching profession, and people, even in my own party, did not feel that she should be, some members of my team, that she should be in that position when I recommended her for permanent secretary. And I said, why? Because I'm talking about family association and political support. I said, if she does the work of the government and does well, and serve people, we will get a lot of votes based on our action. Where she and her family vote is not my business. Do the work, empower the government policies, and that's what I want. So you get someone that will give you a vote in an election, and then because they give you a vote, and then they do things in government because they're not competent, and cause you a lot of problems, then you lose a lot of votes. And I think we politicians have to be very careful about a lot of people that come up in front of us and, you're holier than thou, and try to tell you like Jesus Christ. Praise. In fact, I'll tell some people, when you come to sit down with me, please, if you're telling me too much praise, I get very worried. I get very worried. When they come talking to me, and dark is the greatest thing on the earth, and I say, tell me what you want. Tell me what you want.
All right.
And I think some of the flattery politicians fall for. I can say in my young days in politics, I didn't fall for it too. But I'm saying politicians need to be very careful of the people you have around you. You have to have people who will say to you, they might support you, yes, okay, fine, but you have to be able to say to you, Colin, if it's you, or in my case, me, I don't like this decision. But then I don't expect them to go in the street and talk about it. Come to me, talk to me, and advise me accordingly. And I hope present government will take a turn and start doing some of the things that I hear, because if they do that, the country will benefit and the political stock will rise. Mm-hmm. So I'm not here talking just NNP. I'm talking about national issues.
You've made a lot of comments recently, the fiscal management of the country. Yes. I know we all depend on these IMF interim reports, and an IMF report, the last one, speaks to a 3.9% growth being anticipated in 2024. How do you juxtapose your criticism of fiscal management with the indicators as identified by IMF, which seem to be positive?
No, you talk about growth. Growth does not, it's not just aspect of fiscal. You could waste money and be fiscally irresponsible and have growth and misspend money and in the wrong places and so on. So fiscally is about managing the resources of the country properly. You recall, we came into government, as you know, and I mentioned over and over that we had no money in the treasury. That was well known. But we built a capacity in the system. People can't say they didn't create jobs. We created jobs. There were a lot of initiative and big projects. And economic activity was created. We also balanced the budget. We had surpluses in the recurrent side of the budget, which helped to invest in the capital stock of the country. In addition to investment by the private sector, we were able to invest in capital projects government side. So that's what we had. So that by the time we left government, we were 5% and 6% growth. So growth was there, but we also were fiscally responsible, so that you had a tremendous surplus. In fact, the government said when it came in that there were 500 million. They were shocked with the level of resources that were there that could be used then to propel economic activity by investing in capital stocks in the country as a whole. And then we also took decision, Colin, and invested in CRIF. And I heard one uninformed person in the government saying that NMP had nothing to do with it. But if NMP didn't do it, you would not have had $180 million in 14 days after Beryl struck our country. And then they invested a lot of money. They involved CBI projects in CBI activities by the CBI Citizenship Investment applications. They had hundreds of that, and therefore they had a lot of money. They themselves put out things, how much money that they earned. So you had money coming from the customs and inland revenue and the account side regularly, and other areas of taxes, corporate taxes and so on. You had $500 million that the government, you said you got from our government left. And you got $118 million for burial, and you also get the money from CBI. So the question is, how come, Colin, we have seen no initiative of major projects going into the country? After 2.5 years, almost 50% of the government time has elapsed. And there is no serious project from the government side. With all the applicants, successful applicants for CBI, how come we have no project yet? Only projects that we have is the ones that the NNP invested in. So the question is, growth, Colin, cannot be correlated with fiscal management by itself. That cannot be accurate at all. Fiscal is I wouldn't say it's separate, but it's clearly distinct.
Can you give examples of ideas where you thought that better financial stewardship ought to have occurred?
Well, the fact is, Colin, I don't know where the money has been spent. We're not seeing anything. The question I ask is, where is the money being spent? We don't know. And there's no accountability. No one is telling us. Where is the $500 million? What did you invest it in? Where did you mean? So far, the farmers are complaining they got nothing yet. We hear about promises over the $118 million and telling them to go in GDP. These monies are supposed to be passed on to the farmers on a certain system and put in place. Up to now, nothing. And we made sure, Colin, that not a cent from the CBI successful applicants will go to recurrent expenditure. We made sure it was capital projects. And we had much less than they had based on their own numbers that they gave out. But we have not seen any projects yet. So I cannot say where it should go when in fact I don't know where the money went.
Are you suggesting that the Finance Committee of Parliament is not working? I know that there's a separate committee that deals with the finances of the country.
Finance comes in once a year, and we had a finance committee for supplemental, and even then, as you recall, that you have to wonder when you saw what is. When I ask questions about this, you can't really get any serious answers. The monies are being placed in certain departments that has no correlation with the areas of service. So there's no question about the lack of I would say, transparency in how this government operates. And I don't believe they themselves understand what they're doing. Honestly, I believe if they knew, they would do better. Honestly, I'm at loss with what I'm seeing from this government. And you hear a minister say one thing today, you hear another minister say something else, and you wonder, well, who's minding the shop? I don't know. And that's a problem. That's a serious issue going forward in this country. For me, I hope and pray that the government gets its act together. I don't feel it will, but honestly, for the country's sake, because they're managing the country, and the better they do, is the better the country does also, and therefore I honestly hope I'll see some changes going forward, because if a new government comes into office, you want something there that has something in place, so that when he gets there, it can take off at another platform.
Healthcare. But some comments, if we just change gears now, there's been quite a bit of commentary likewise on the management of healthcare. What are your observations?
Well, we're just hearing so many stories of problems at the hospital, babies dying, and the mothers dying of childbirth. These are things I'm hearing. Again, there's no statement from the government. There's no explanation given. We know, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that healthcare was perfect under the NNP or any other previous government. Healthcare, as you know, Colin, has been a problem almost all over the world, because it's about people's lives. So there would always be opportunities for people to talk about, but there appear to be an increasing level of incompetence in the healthcare system in the country, and no one is reporting what is happening. There are no responses from people, from the statements that you hear being made, you'd expect the minister or whoever in charge of the country would come out and say X, Y, Z. You don't get anything, so we're at loss. So we, in effect, what we're doing, we're whooping, so to speak, because we don't know what is happening. And healthcare is important, talking about the lives of people, and therefore you don't expect to be whooping in a situation like this. So it worries me. So I cannot tell you specifics because I'm not there and I don't get information, so I can't tell you much more than that.
What is the normal reporting mechanism? Has there been, let's say, a monthly report on, certainly not, mortality rates, and certainly infant mortality rates? What has been the reporting structure, and can your party lead on healthcare delve into those numbers in order to get some information and shed some light?
Well, certainly we can do that, but the government has to be open to providing the information. And, but I'm just making the point, Colin, that they live in this country, and you hear the cries of mothers and families about these incidents of death and people's lives being lost. You'd expect a statement from the government. I don't know that the opposition has to ask you to give a statement. I don't know that, when in fact we don't know what is happening, you know. So I'm just making the point. I think the onus is on the government. That's why you were there. You were chosen by the people. They said they had enough of NNP, time for you to go out. They wanted a new team. They got a new team. Now you are in charge. But tell us what's happening in key areas. When people have their problems, you come out and speak. Calling it, even in the case of infrastructure, we see many of the road projects. A project is started 2.5 years ago, it can't finish. In fact, it looked like it was off now, after 2.5 years of work being done, than it was before it was started. Molyneux looked worse today than it was when the incident occurred. After 2.5 years and millions of dollars been spent. Little roads that if they started can't be finished. So there is no question in my mind. There's a serious problem of management of the public. So,
but shed some light on the Molyneux Road project, because it is within your constituency. I know that from what we were hearing, the original target date of early November will not be the case. What have you heard as to why there will be some delays in the completion of the project? And I don't know that it's true that it's worse than when it started, but because some significant monies was spent, and I'd like to believe that we trust, because some of the players who were the experts have transcended administration. So I would like to believe that it's not worse off.
Don't forget, Colin, as soon as they came in, they moved the consultants. They had to get them back. So and let's face it, the first person was speaking about it, and they come in, Andy. I mean, what Andy knows about the infrastructure? I mean, Andy talking as an engineer. I mean, I feel sorry for Andy, to be put in that position, and he should not be allowed to do this to himself and the country. And Andy talking about the country. This project will be finished in December 2022. But Andy knows. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you saw. And he was touring the area as the big expert, and he touring projects, and condemning me and the government for not finishing the project on time, and it will be finished. And he had parading in Northwest St. George's, as the big man of the government. So where we are today, and he's still in charge. And he's still in charge. He can't finish. So that's where we are. So every time I pass there and I look, I wonder, well, what's all this money being spent for? You can't see no progress, really. So I mean, it affects me because that's my area. And every time I pass there, I have to make this lonely road through Morris.
As an MP, have you done an official inspection of the project?
Well, I passed there, but I've gone there once in the early stage, talked to the engineers, and therefore I had information. I would not share it on radio, so on this program. But it's clear that the thing is not properly guided, and management is a problem, and it comes from the top, so to speak, going on. So, colleague, I don't know if you can say much more on this. All I can say is somebody has to man the shop. and the shop is not being manned appropriately. That's what we could put it on to.
Okay.
And so we're spending millions and millions of dollars. It just came to Parliament and asked for a lot of millions. Again, I can't remember the exact number. In addition to the millions that were spent already, that the project was supposed to use to complete the project, we go in additional expenditure going forward. And that's where we are. So that's why I said you might see growth, because a lot of money is spent. But really what actually is being done, because the question of the resources going into a project adds to the expenditure and the growth and as far as the GDP is concerned. So you'll see that, but it doesn't necessarily mean that a lot of things have been done.
Okay.
That affects.
Our 90 minutes is almost up, so I would leave you to make some closing comments. I know that we're on the eve of the 40th anniversary. I hear you're having a big bingo. I don't know if I could win the $100,000.
Yeah, I would love you to win, but just said bring all your friends and help us to raise enough. So now we're having this, and one of the things we are hoping to do a lot more in some of the activities we've had, activity with the youth. We're expecting to do something there, but we're also looking at the possibility of a massive rally. We'd commemorate the 40 years of work of the new national party in the country, and we hope to use the opportunity to call in the government on some of its weaknesses and pointing out that in ways in which we could have done better, and that the government needs to get its act together going forward. So there are a number of things that we're going to be planning going forward, and we take it from there. But I'm very happy that we have had the opportunity for this program to converse with the people of this country, and as I said before, if and when you have another program you want for the Collins to come in and call, and I always like when my friends and opponent call on the program and give their views, because I like to have that kind of interaction with people outside us. But we stuck to the format that you indicated earlier on. But I thank you for hosting the program, and I look forward to any future programs that you have.
Dr. Keith Mitchell, political leader of the New National Party and leader of His Majesty's opposition. It was an absolute pleasure speaking with you this evening. Thank you very much for sharing your normal candidate approach as per usual, and we look forward to having you again on the program on a future evening. And to you, the listeners and viewers, thank you so very much for giving up the last 90 minutes of your Monday evening. It was an absolute pleasure having you join in with us for this important discussion on national issues. I encourage you to remain committed to Grenada. Remain committed to Grenada's development. Together we can build. Together we can succeed. Take good care. Godspeed. Good night.
Before I finish, you go, I say the program went well, and because of your hosting also. This is one of the
flattery, Dr. Mitchell. Thank you very much. Okay. Good evening all. Take good care.